Inglorious Basterds is a surprisingly deceptive alternate history film by Quentin Tarantino, possibly the most oddball film that he's done. The marketing campaign for the film heavily played up the main characters as being the Inglorious Basterds themselves, giving us posters with each actor, such as Brad Pitt is a bastard and such, but what we got was a shockingly suspenseful film that the bastards themselves are secondary players in. The story starts by introducing us to the main villain, Hans Landa, played by Christoph Waltz, a Nazi SS agent who is surprisingly adept at hunting down Jews in Nazi-occupied France. The opening scene shows him as being exceedingly efficient at his job, but also makes him absolutely frightening, because unlike Hitler's elite, who all believe in what they're doing, Landa sees it only as a job that he is good at. He is cold and calculating, but unnerving and strange. The Bastards are mostly a group of American Jewish soldiers who specialize in hunting down Nazis and scalping them. They're planning to top Nazi names in a theater during a film premiere and blow up the building, which is made more complicated by the plans going horribly awry, but at the same time they can hardly back out when they find out that Hitler himself will be there. On the other hand, we have the main character, Shoshana, a French-Jewish girl who escaped from Landa, and after a young German soldier takes a liking to her, he tries to impress her by having the premiere of the film moved to her theater. And after finding out that top Nazis will be there as well as Landa himself, who killed her family, she independently comes up with the same plan of trapping the German elite inside and burning down the place. So we have two independent forces working toward the same goal, but without ever crossing over with each other, which I found to be interesting. The film is unusual for a Tarantino film because it is heavily plot-focused. Usually the plot in any of Tarantino films can be summed up very quickly. The majority of the runtime is spent on characterization, giving through heavy blocks of dialogue that is not exposition at all, but just conversations the characters have that flesh them out, not by the obvious means of literary devices, but by showing their individual quirks. The reason that Tarantino's characters are so well beloved and known is because you hear them just having regular conversations. You get a feel of what they're like. You feel that they're not talking simply to advance the plot. For example, the car scene in Pulp Fiction is just some guys talking about fast food in Europe, but it's one of the most memorable parts of the movie. Inglorious Basterds, though, is heavily plot-driven and doesn't feature scenes that don't move the plot forward, even ones where the characters are seemingly having a good time and just talking. There's a huge undercurrent of tension due to the setting. The biggest example is when a British officer poses as a German officer in a bar and converses with German military and a famous actress. But he's eventually suspected of being different due to his wonky accent and small quirks that seem not German. So, to that end, this was the start of a new era for Tarantino, of being more plot-focused, which continued onwards with Django Unchained. Personally, I think it's a rather good change, as doing one thing for too long eventually leads to stagnation. I mean, we all love the hamburger scene in Pulp Fiction, or the discussion of tipping in Reservoir Dogs, or Bill and the Bride talking about superheroes toward the end of Kill Bill, but with Inglorious Basterds, Tarantino tries something new. I also praise the soundtrack, which lends itself well to the atmosphere of tension and suspense, and the cinematography, with heavy uses of framing and clever angles. It's not Tarantino's best work, but it's sort of a transitional film, I believe, and it's laden with great moments of horrific violence, hilarious levity, and it's the sort of movie that will never let you quite relax until the credits roll. I give it a 9 out of 10.